serious when you start talking.
Okay, good evening. It is 5:19 p.m. I'm going to call this Pawnee Business Council special meeting to order on August the 15th, 2023. This evening, I would like to ask Dr. Evans if he can give us the invocation, please.
Thank you. Thank you for that honor. Please pray with me. No atias tiruat. Lord God, thank you for this day and all that you've given us, and help us to always keep our eyes open and see the blessings around us. And I know there's times when we're stressed and there's a lot going on. Give us comfort, give us confidence to do the best we can at everything we do. And Lord, I know there's times we fall short, and forgive us and help us not to make those same mistakes that next day. Help us as leaders to keep our eye on that vision of where we want to be, and lead our people to that place and you know of independence and strength and greatness. Thank you for our families, and thank you for the Pawnee Nation. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, I'd like to welcome everybody this evening. At this time, we'll move to item number 2, roll call.
Misty Nuttall.
Present.
Jordan Canuho. Here. George Gardapi here. Carol Chapman.
Here.
Cynthia Butler.
Titaku.
Donna Hare.
Titaku.
Gene Evans.
Here.
Sammy Kimball.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Item number 3 is approval of the agenda. Was there any additions, deletions?
Yes. So under the approval of minutes, number 1, we're going to remove that for tonight. We'll bring that back up next meeting. And then we're going to add a section old business, 7 old business. And under that, number 1, approval of 2023 Pawnee Nation second quarterly report, committees, commissions, and boards. And then finally, under new business, we're going to add number 5, approval of resolution 2342 FNBT Reconnect 3 account. And those are all the changes.
Okay, so under old business, it'll be number 8 instead of 7.
Oh, yeah, sorry, 8.
Any other comments or additions, deletions? Hearing no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve with changes.
I'll make that motion.
Got a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Seconded by Vice President Canuho. No further discussion. We'll call for the vote.
Jordan Canuho.
Yes.
George Gardapi, yes. Carol Chapman.
Yes.
Cynthia Butler.
Yes.
Donna Hare.
Uh-huh.
Gene Evans.
Yes.
Sammy Kimball.
Yes.
Okay. Item number 4, we have approval of minutes. The standing item, approval of Pawnee Business Council meeting minutes for August 1, 2023.
And those are in the packet that was sent out.
Madam President, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for August 1st, 2023.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Butler. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Secretary Gardapi. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Jordan Canuho. Yes. George Gardapi, yes. Carol Chapman.
Yes.
Cynthia Butler.
Yes.
Donna Hare.
Uh-huh.
Gene Evans.
Yes.
Sammy Kimball.
Yes.
Right, thank you for that. Item number 5, we have Pawnee Business Council President Report. And since our last meeting, I have like 4 items to update, I guess we would say, on. We don't have really anything new other than the announcement for the last one. I wanted to update on the White Box initiative that we have. On August the 9th, I sent a letter to Ashley Fry with the United States Department of State to thank them for the opportunity to participate in the International Repatriation Museum Exchange Program. And the Department of State has provided funding for a Pawnee Nation delegation to go to Sweden to engage in dialogue and discussions in order to repatriate the belongings of White Box. And then we also have the potential to engage in discussions with the Karolinska Institute, because we have new information that they could possibly have additional remains of White Box. So we've sent letters to her identifying who our designated contact is here at the Nation, and then they'll be able to establish that. And then we are looking to receive confirmation on the status of funding that was supposedly to have been received from the State Department, and I don't know where we're at on that yet. If maybe Jen could provide an update on that. Also, on that same day, we sent a letter to Carl Magnuson, who is the Chief of Staff and the Acting Director of Collections for the National Museums of World Culture, again identifying our designated point of contact. And then yesterday, on the 14th, we received correspondence back from him, and he had given us potential dates to attend a virtual meeting to initiate those discussions. So this is what we were waiting on in order to move forward in our repatriation efforts. Our staff has been meeting internally. We have a standing call on Mondays to go over any information or if there's any new developments that we have within this initiative, and then trying to keep everybody apprised of any communications received from each of us or by the museum or the state. So that's one of the things that, like I said, we're still waiting to receive that status of funding from the State Department. On August the 8th, we attended the United States Department of Agriculture Nation to Nation meeting hosted by the Osage Nation in Tulsa. And the Pawnee Nation was honored with the opportunity to showcase the projects we have going on at the Nation as a result of the funding opportunities provided by the USDA. This was a great honor as we were featured in their Success Stories segment of their program. And I would like to commend Vice President Canuho, Jennifer, Reva, and Brian for developing the PowerPoint presented. It kind of was a late notice, and then they pulled together and was able to have a very good PowerPoint presentation. And then also to commend Vice President Canuho for his excellent presentation and thorough information that he provided for all in attendance. They also invited the tribal leaders in attendance to come to the front and share their current projects they had with their respective nations. And I was able to speak on behalf of the Agricultural Department, what we have going on with our greenhouse initiative, the Buffalo Project, that we have cattle operations in addition to our current funded USDA projects, and inform them of the work and initiatives of the Seed Preservation Society. On August 4th, we met with the Department of Interior Office of Self-Governance and developed a compact for the Secretary of the Interior's review and approval. And this compact is to carry out self-governance activities as authorized by Title IV and Public Law 93-638 as amended. And this document essentially transfers control from the Secretary to the Nation. The Nation will meet again with the Office of Self-Governance to further discuss our negotiation efforts and the programs to be assumed in their associated funding, as well as identifying any other funds the Nation is eligible for to carry out those particular PSFAs within those programs. Our next scheduled meeting is on Friday, the 18th, which is this Friday. On August 14th, our internal team met to identify funding information we have yet to receive in order to make sound decisions regarding our negotiation efforts and work on drafting the funding agreement, the required other piece of documentation. We have to have a compact and then a funding agreement. And in order to draft that funding agreement, we want to all be on the same page, so we met to discuss that, and then there's more work to be had before our meeting on the 18th. We received a wealth of information yesterday via email, and we'll continue to review and discuss any further identified issues that we have or lack of information prior to the 18th, so we are all uniform in our efforts. And then just an announcement that tomorrow, the 15th at 10 a.m., we will be having the required Constitution class as required for our last elected PBC members, and including additional information presentations and refresher trainings on important tribal issues and topics relevant to our positions as PBC leaders. And so, it's an opportunity to ask questions of staff, or if you have any areas of concern or things like that, to ask questions and get it out so we can find the answers. And with that, that's the conclusion to my report. We'll move to the next item, which is number 6, Pawnee Business Council Committee Reports. Do we have any committee reports?
President Nuttall, I actually had 2 committee meetings over the last couple weeks, and one of the first things that we did was the Dadaha meeting was held on 8/8 on Tuesday. What we're trying to do is find some funding, right, for our Dadaha. Sunny Evans has been working diligently trying to put that together. She's going to the private sector, also federal level funding agencies. We do need salaries for our bison herders, so that's the gist of writing those grant proposals. We're also going to be writing SOPs and a go between the cattle and the buffalo. Right now, we're wanting to upgrade the chutes, the trailer, and an observatory for the buffalo. We want to move the cattle out of the agency, the reserve here, out by the tracks, and move them out and put the buffalo there. That is their recommendation. Kind of keep a better eye out on them. I also had an IT meeting, and I just touched base with Brian. That's in the works. We're working on a 10-year cycle and for server 2022, and that cost is based on 170 users right now, and they're going back and forth with that user list. We're also looking at hardware that has been deployed. Some people have desktops, and then laptops. So we're getting a double bill for maintenance support for each piece of hardware. There's some cost savings that are realized in doing that. We're also going to develop some standards to have a particular laptop, particular printer, etc., purchased, rather than everything across the board and whatever people want. Unless you're an engineer or perhaps the roads or Monty, you just need a basic. You just need a basic laptop rather than anything that does anything beyond that. So that's where we're at right now. They're wanting to, I just talked to Brian about this, the onboarding and offboarding process between procurement, HR, and IT. They have to be in unison, and it's broke. And so we're going to try to get there. We want to eliminate what's old, what's not in use. We're wanting to take whatever hardware is just sitting and deploying it out and upgrading and refreshing people that have really old stuff. So that's kind of what's going on. I just was called in and thought I'd help them. This is just a volunteer basis kind of thing and some logic for that. And I think that's all I have. Those were the 2 meetings that I attended, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. And
Thank
yes,
you.
I believe an email was sent out noting that they were going to do inventory on Wednesday.
Yes,
Staff will be doing inventory on Wednesday
Yes.
to all the programs.
yes.
Anybody else have committee reports? Yes, Councilwoman Harrell.
Thank you, President Nell. I haven't had any committee meetings. I did want to report on our Intergovernmental Affairs Committee on one of our members, and maybe you've heard that John Echohawk was awarded by the American Bar Association the Thurgood Marshall Award, which is a highly prestigious award. His picture is on Indian Country Today, and I'd just like to read a short part, first few paragraphs of the story that Mark Trahant wrote about on him. It says, if history is documented by footnotes, then the legal citations naming John Echohawk and the Native American Rights Fund will be found in virtually every Indian law case since the 1970s. Pick a legal question: treaty rights, voting rights, sovereignty, check, check, check. The record of action is deep. Affairs Committee.
Thank you for sharing that, Councilwoman Hare. That is a great honor of Mr. Echohawk, and he's been an advocate for Native issues for my whole life. Ever since growing up, that he was always associated with NARF, and it was proud. I always felt proud because yes, they were Pawnee members, and then all of the other Echohawks too that kind of resonated and what am I trying to say? Resonated and gravitated towards, advocating for Native issues. That's always been, their lifelong legacy. So yes, it's a tremendous honor for him, and we do send out our congratulations to him, and thank you for sharing that, via email with all of the PVCs. Does anybody else have anything to report for committee reports? If not, we'll move on to item 7, Pawnee Business Council travel requests and reports. Does anybody have anything to report? I reported on mine in my presidential report, and then also shared, that Jordan attended as well. If nothing, then we'll move on to item 8, old business, approval of 2023 Pawnee Nation second quarterly report. Committees, commissions, and boards. This was tabled from the quarterly meeting that we had. We had three commissions that had not submitted their reports, and we have received 2, and then we're still waiting on a report from the Evening Star. So that's where we're at with this. Have you guys had an opportunity to review the reports, and do we have any discussion? Yes, Councilwoman Harris.
I have a question.
Yes.
Have we ever required a report from Evening Star before? They're really not one of our boards or commissions or committees, and I was just wondering if we've ever had to ask for a report before.
That would be prior to me. So.
I think this would be the first time that they would have reported, but it's in their MOU that they will provide a quarterly report. So I just assumed that it would be along with our regular quarterly reports. That's the reason why I asked for it. But it will be their first one, so I'm good with, if we get another one or if they can report later on what they're doing, I'd be good with going ahead and reporting this. Now, I'm a stickler about turning things in on time, and I do want to just mention that I wasn't happy with the terror report because we didn't hear really nothing that the commission's working on. And that's the whole purpose of them reporting to the council, is for the commissioners to be like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what our staff is working on. And there was a lot of inconsistencies within the report, and I wasn't really pleased. But I would like to make the suggestion that if they are late in submitting their report, I would like to see them in front of us to report and to tell us why they were late. Because we need to take ownership of our commissions and our boards. And I've been a stickler for this for a long time, well, since I've been on council, that we need to be more active with those entities because they bring in the money. They bring in those taxes, they bring in that revenue. And we, if they're not doing something according to their governing documents, then we really need to hold them to the fire for that. We hold our staff to the fire for policies. We need to hold them to our laws. So I'm just throwing that out there.
So
And-
I have a comment to that. Has that been shared with them? Have you shared that, Cynthia, with the board? Did you email the board, the Terrell board, telling you that you were disappointed? And
No, I just read the report today.
I know, but that's kind of a
Yeah.
cheap shot, really.
Yeah, well, and I'm for Taro. It's just,
Yeah, I know, but
it
maybe
was
it's a,
disappointing to see. I'm going to their meeting on Thursday.
oh, good. It could be a
And-
training thing. It
Yeah.
could just be communication, what have you. I know that gentleman is in Alaska, the chair. So maybe it's just one of those deals. Who
Yeah.
knows?
It just, I want to see a little bit more from all of our commissions and boards. It's not just Taro. Today just happens to be Taro because they're, didn't submit a report.
Yeah.
But it's just because, I have a lot of things about the tax commission that I'd like to see as well. And I mention that almost every quarterly meeting as well.
Yes.
But I just think that we need to be more active because we're the ones who hold them accountable because they answer to us. We appoint them and they're supposed to report to us and then we report what they're doing to the people. And how can we do that whenever we don't know what they're doing? So that's my point. And,
Yeah.
and yes, with permission from the president, I'll mention that. But I want to see something different in the reports. Our division reports were restructured and all the demographics and stuff that we see in there. I
Right.
love that. And I
Right.
love that.
Me
I'd like
too.
to see more of the stuff in our commission reports because they do have a lot more to report.
Yes, we can look at the requirements. Just like you said, the division reports were restructured, so look at restructuring the commission reports and then the information that they report on.
Excuse me, President, can I have everybody speak directly into the microphone? It's easier for people on watching live to hear. So move the microphone as close as you can.
Okay, does anybody else have any comments? Yes. Treasurer Chapman.
I would just like to say I agree with Councilwoman on the issue of more involvement. And I'll just use another example was the Election Commission. I know they did, they worked real hard, but there were a lot of things that came to the PVC as being responsible for some things, and I think that, it would be good if we, as a council, were more involved in that process also.
Yes.
That's a very important one. So I agree it is a very important thing that we as a council should probably regroup on and see how we can be more involved in oversight to see that things are processed a little more efficiently. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for those comments and input. So how do we want to proceed on the current reports that we've received? We want to approve those and then,
I'll make the motion to approve the committee commissions and board reports for the quarterly.
okay, got a motion on the floor to approve the reports that were received. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Treasurer Chapman. Any further discussion? If not, we'll call for the vote.
Jordan Canuho,
Yes.
George Garber, yes. Carol Chapman,
Yes.
Cynthia Butler,
Yes.
Donna Hare, Gene Evans,
Yes.
Sammy Kimball.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. We're moving on to item number 9, under new business. Item number 1, we have presentation of Pawnee Nation USDA Rural Development Projects. Who will be presenting on that?
President, I'll present on this. Waiting for the slides to come up. So as President Nettle had mentioned last week, her and I, along with our executive director, Jennifer, we went to the USDA nation-to-nation consultation hosted by Osage Nation at their casino there at Tulsa. And it was a good opportunity to see the certain opportunities that USDA is presenting, and it was also a great opportunity for the Pawnee Nation to showcase some of the work that we've been doing with USDA. And so talking with the president and also with our executive director, we felt that it would be good to showcase this and just kind of show what we presented over there at that nation-to-nation presentation. As Madam President mentioned in her report, this was an opportunity that USDA asked Pawnee Nation to showcase the work that we're doing. And so that was a really good honor for us to have that opportunity to be asked by USDA to show the work that we're doing and kind of the success stories that we're having with the projects that we're doing there. And so I, along with Brian and Jennifer, and also too with Lyle and Alex with TribuQuint, we got these slides put together here that you'll notice here on the screen. And so I'm just going to go through the presentation and kind of share what we presented there. And when I get to the behavioral health, Brian, don't hold me, against everything. No, it's either. No. So you'll notice on this first slide here, we have the USDA Rural Placemaking Innovation Challenge. Pawnee Nation was actually a beneficiary of this. When President Ekahawk was in office, he was contacted through Micah Group, who had applied for this grant here. And out of that, that's where Lyle and Alex from TribuQuint came along. And this RPIC grant here was a grant that they was able to do with the Pawnee Nation to help develop a long-term plan for broadband that will impact and benefit our community. The placemaking analyzes where people work, live, and play. And we worked, like I said, with TribuQuint to collaborate around ideas around areas we can bring broadband into the community. So you'll notice there on that slide, it's a collective reimagining and reinventing of public spaces through a collaborative process that allows communities to decide what they value the most. And so we developed the broadband approach, and that leads us into the next slide here, which is our broadband projects. As we are currently finishing our pre-application work on Reconnect 3, we're very close to USDA releasing those funds. You'll notice there the award amount that we got from Reconnect 3 is $24,996,065. The broadband infrastructure project will connect 1,388 households with a total span of 653 miles. This project covers a geographic area approximately of 2/3 of Pawnee County in Oklahoma and extends into the northeastern area of Noble County, which is a portion of Otoe, Missouri. And we are working with Otoe, Missouri. We are currently in the process of working with their TIPO as some of the environmental prerequisites to this project as well. And we will be bringing broadband into their jurisdiction as well. One of the things that I do want to note with USDA that I was very encouraged with is that they reaffirmed our tribal sovereignty by allowing us to self-certify our jurisdiction as either being unserved or served by high-speed, reliable services. That to me was a good move by USDA because, go back real quick, because one of the things with that is there is people who offer services within our jurisdiction, and they will claim that they have the speeds available. But what USDA did was they allowed us as a sovereign tribal nation to self-certify to say that no, there is not indeed what they say they claim they have as far as service within our area. And they took our self-certification rather than taking these private contributors of broadband. And so that was one of the interesting things that I enjoyed about doing this, was seeing that they actually reaffirmed that within us. You'll notice there also too with Reconnect 4, we submitted the application and we are working towards getting that taken care of as well. That is a total award of $24,956,035. So very close to Reconnect 3. And this one here, the project is going to continue on what we did with Reconnect 3. It's going to cover a geographic area that is composed of the city of Pawnee, along with Payne County, areas that we didn't get to capture in the first application of Reconnect 3. And this is going to cover a total of 2,135 locations, and then also to have a middle mile and pole upgrades along with that. Next slide, please. And so right here, you'll see the service areas that we're looking at bringing into. As I mentioned there, there's Otoe, Missouri up in the top left. And then we also have our service area there. You can see by the shades that is covered there. Reconnect 4, and then we also have Reconnect 3, both laid into our service areas there. You'll notice on the right side and also on the bottom side there, those are our middle mile portions that we've planned for. The one going to the right is the one going to Tulsa, the Tulsa hub. And then we have the one on the bottom there towards the middle. That's the one going to Oklahoma City. So this will also open opportunity for Pawnee Nation to collaborate with other broadband service providers. While we were there at Osage, I did mention that I know Osage is moving into broadband themselves, and so this will be a great opportunity to collaborate with the Osage Nation and see if they would be willing to also come along with that as well. So we are looking into the middle mile portion of this, and we're also looking at other funding to build out some more middle mile projects so that we can have other opportunity to not only support rural areas, but also other tribal nations that are in rural areas as well. Next slide, please. So then our next item that we were able to showcase was the Rural Energy Pilot Program from USDA. And this is a renewable energy program. And one of the things that we showcased as we were there was that we were able to have Deputy Secretary of Agriculture Shotil Torres Small. She was there on hand to present us with this wonderful opportunity and the award to us. Renewable energy is only good if we come together to take on the task of lowering our carbon emissions and combating climate change to ensure a better future for our generations to come. Through this, we have developed many partnerships. You'll notice there on the bottom of the slide, there's Pawnee Nation, USDA, Tribuquint, University of Oklahoma, Indian Electric, Pawnee Nation College, and also the Pawnee Nation Housing Authority. We had one of our meetings today with our partners today, just to continue on in the work that we're doing with the Renewable Energy Pilot Program. And so we highlighted on this the project details. The total cost is $2,650,000 and $488. $2 million, that's federal. 36-month timeline on this. The matching funds is $395,000 cash in kind, $255,000, and then you'll notice the partners down there as well. And then these are the project goals that we have. Community scale solar garden, 158 kilowatt garden. Geothermal project, 135 kilowatt project. So when we first submitted a letter of intent with USDA for this project, we were of, I think, 82, 83 groups that submitted this, and we were asked to continue on with this. And so there was a listening session between the letter of intent and the application itself that USDA hosted, and there was opportunity to ask questions. And one of the things that they stressed was that if you're just submitting a project for solar, chances are, unless it's a really good project for solar, chances are you might not be selected for it. They were asking us to think outside the box, whether it's with geothermal, whether it's with wind power. For some, they were even saying with hydropower. So we obviously were looking at wind, and for geothermal. Wind is not really good for our location, for Pawnee Nation and where we are. You can notice our geographical location. We're kind of more in a bowl kind of setting there, so wind wasn't really a good option. So we went with the geothermal aspect. And from that, we actually was looking at different articles, and Alex was one of the ones who noticed an article with University of Oklahoma that CT, Dr. Tudori over there, with a professor with at the University of Oklahoma who is doing work with reusing oil wells for geothermal. And so we incorporated that into the project, and so that's where we get the geothermal aspect of it. We're also working on sensor deployment. We had that discussion today in our meeting, and I know Secretary Gardapi is working with Tribuquin on that as well, and we're developing a strategy on the sensor deployment, battery storage system, 35 units, electric charging stations. We're having 5 of those. So educational meetings and workshops. That's where the college, Pawnee Nation College and University of Oklahoma are going to come together on that. Renewable energy certification. This is for installation of the solar panels. There's 10 opportunities for 10 students who can take the certification class for that, and that'll be hosted by Pawnee Nation College as well. And then we also have institutional partnership, weatherization planning, and cooperative business modeling from that. So a lot happening with that one as well. And then this one here, it was really good to highlight this because this was right on the heels of our groundbreaking that we had just the week prior to that, and that's the USDA Recovery Grant, the Pawnee Nation Behavioral Health Facility. And we wanted to highlight the partners that we had there as well, with USDA providing the $1 million for this grant, Pawnee Nation, and then also to our Behavioral Health LLC there with our emblem. Pawnee Nation College, those who may not be aware, and I did share this over there, Pawnee Nation College is actually 5% owners of this as well, which is great. They're going to also help provide training and certification for our tribal members and those interested to be employees at this wonderful facility once it's built and operating. Ascension and then Baker Tilly, they've been really good with working alongside of us and helping us along the way. And then also to the U.S. Economic Development Administration. And so with Pawnee Nation Behavioral Health Facility, I just expressed to them as well is that this project is a $22 million project. Through USD Rural Development, we were able to receive $1 million, and we were very gracious and thankful to receive that from them and to see that happen. And I did mention during the meeting that Director Corn and his team were there at the groundbreaking, and it was good to have them there on hand to see this come to fruition. This has been a work in progress that's been over the span of 4, maybe 5 administrations, Brian, at that time, coming to this point here of seeing the groundbreaking happening. And so now we're looking forward to actually seeing dirt moved and seeing things coming together on that. And so this is going to take 16 to 18 months from the groundbreaking to opening doors and actually seeing the facility live and open to patients and those who need the services. It's going to be an inpatient and outpatient service, 26 beds, 24,000 square foot facility, and you'll notice they're the partners again. The community impact to this is currently closest residential treatment provider is about an hour away from Pawnee Reservation. An estimated substance use disorders impact cost for our 5 county services around it's going to be $87 million. Total 10-year savings to the state of Oklahoma is estimated at $172 million, which is a huge impact that Pawnee Nation is going to have. Service areas, Payne, Osage, Noble, and Kay counties. But you also keep in mind, that's just the ones that we're noting here, but we could also be taking up others from other counties such as Tulsa, Creek, maybe even further than that, because there is a huge demand for behavioral health services, and so we're noting the ones that are within our service area. And then we noted on here the treatment services that will have traditional native treatments, outpatient substance use disorder treatment for adults and adolescents, intensive outpatient substance use disorder treatment for adults and adolescents, outpatient post-incarceration syndrome treatment for long-term incarceration, medication-assisted treatment for individuals struggling with opioid and or alcohol and use disorder, aftercare including space for community self-help groups, 26-bed residential program, as we mentioned earlier, and then lastly, a holistic treatment for the entire family. So we're really wanting to take on this issue with behavioral health that's happening here in our area there. And we're just thankful for USDA also helping out with that. And so with that, that's the presentation we gave. That's what I shared there. I had a good couple of little notes in there as well, but I mean, I wanted to share that with our tribal members, share that with our council here. This is what was presented at the nation-to-nation consultation with USDA, and just to let you all see what was shared there, and also to let our tribal members and council know that we're doing a lot, and I think we're becoming very noticed, I guess, in that sense of what we're doing with USDA. And so looking forward to other great opportunities that are out there that is available to us. I know today there was a meeting with Director Korn and discussing other opportunities that are available to us. So that's just going to continue on with what we're doing with USDA. And so I shared when I first started with the presentation, I didn't know that was a lot that was offered through USDA. I come from the private sector, and so for me, I thought USDA was just making sure you had enough, you go and get money for your cattle and for your crops and things like that. But as you can tell, they are very much more than just the agriculture, crops, cattle type stuff. They definitely have a lot more going on with it as well. So we're very appreciative. So with
Thanks,
that,
Jordan.
turn it back over to you, President.
Thank you, Vice President Canujo. And like I mentioned, there was a thorough amount of information. I learned a lot myself, and recapping everything. Coming on board, a lot of these projects were already in motion. And so just, with what he's saying, it's kind of eye-opening to see, how all of this is coming about, and then how privileged we are to be a part of, this project and taking advantage of what USDA has to offer. In sharing what Vice President Canujo had mentioned, the types of programs that USDA does provide, I brought back two very important documents. There was other pamphlets and things that they had, and one of them outlines or summarizes the programs that they have. They're really focused on rural development and the initiatives looking to tribes to see, ways that they can provide additional funding opportunities and trying to get the word out about the types of funding that they have. And then also I have the USDA Resource Guide for American Indians and Alaska Natives, which outlines, as it says, resources that the tribes can look at seeking out, I guess, in response to the types of projects that they have or initiatives. And then even USDA, mentioned that they would be more than, what am I trying to say? Basically thrilled to connect, even act as a mediator, I guess, and kind of facilitate projects and opportunities for tribes to engage with each other on similar projects. So it was a really, really great opportunity to be there. We had, the leaders of all of the programs that were there. They were able to answer questions, and then even, we learned about this was something that was totally off basis, but, it brought about concerns that we have with our projects for, I'm trying to say broadband, and then even just within the area that they have had an influx of what's called black vultures. And what they were talking about was like predation and then of species, a lot in the area that we have is we have issues with like feral pigs. So they have identified, different species that are coming into Oklahoma, whether it's, because of climate change or whether it's because of, like we're saying, the removal of certain animals from the ecosystem. So, it causes a shift. And the concern was that the feces of this black vulture is very acidic, and they like to roost basically on playground equipment, and stuff. So having your children out there, just being aware of the surroundings and then the ecosystem, on top of cell towers, those types of things, water towers. He mentioned that, you could spend $50,000 just to paint your water tower and then have these black vultures come in 2 to 3 days, that paint job is just gone. It's just a waste of money. So, but just also spoke to the intellectual ability of these black vultures and the ways that they were trying to set traps and things for them. And like I said, he just said it was a very intriguing animal, and it's not one that they have really dealt with because it's mostly in like Arkansas and the Missouri areas. But we didn't know how much of an impact that had on us, and whether it was something that we should be concerned with. But just things like that, learning of issues and then how they have the potential to affect our project. So, like I said, very informational meeting. Okay, does anybody else have any questions or comments for Vice President Canujo?
That's great.
Yes, Councilwoman Harris.
Just good job. Thank you.
Councilwoman Kimball, did you have anything?
I'm good, thank you. For once.
Okay, moving on
That's
to item
great.
number 2, discussion and/or action on planning and zoning proposal.
Good evening, Council.
Evening.
So this is, is it on? Okay. So Amy Wilson with C Renewal is here. Previously, she's done a proposal back after we did the infrastructure plan. So Amy and I, along with Jennifer and Brian Riva, have been discussing this, kicking back information back and forth, and we've dove back into the proposal, and I think we've scaled it back to where I think it's more palpable to council. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Amy and let her discuss the presentation.
Thank you. Great. Hello, everyone. It's great to see you all. Thank you for inviting me to be here. And it's really nice to meet you, President Nuttall, for the first time, and Vice President. I think we might have met, but briefly, I'm not sure. But virtually, exactly. So this proposal, you have packets, and that has the presentation and then also the proposal and my resume and a couple of letters of recommendation, I guess they're letters of recommendation, and then also a certificate of insurance, just so you have it. But this proposal is basically the same as the original proposal, except for the budget has been scaled down, and the Pawnee Nation I will work with them, with you, with the staffing at the Natural Resources Department, but your folks will be responsible for generating the mapping. I'll work hand in hand and figuring out what we need, but they'll be doing the heavy lifting in terms of generating the mapping. And then the other change is that I'll coordinate, work hand in hand with Chris and everyone else, and really evaluating the zoning options, helping you to draft those zoning codes and design standards, because I know that was a big one, and also for any future housing additions, looking at design standards that you guys want. But please feel free to stop me, as I go through this. But the project is a 5-phase project, and we also scaled down the timeline to about 18 months. But with that said, I know that, right now funding is really important, right, under all the different funding opportunities. And a lot of those require, a land use plan or master planning. So I don't think that the 18 months is going to pump the brakes on anything. In fact, the first phase of this is the development of a work plan. And that is something that I do in these big projects, and it's a formal document that guides the planning process. It identifies who's going to be involved, how you're going to reach the community. Are you going to do school projects with the college and with the high school students? Are you going to go to the elder center? And and how is that going to look? So it's really like this kind of formalized roadmap. So between the point that council approves that formal work plan, which is in the very beginning, to the very end, whenever you approve the final plan 18 months later, all the different funding opportunities that come available, I don't think we need to wait for that final document. All you need to do is note, hey, our council has approved this work plan. We are in the process of developing a land use plan, and this component, whether it's housing or broadband or whatever it is, this is included in that plan. And I think that they'll approve the funding, with that knowledge that, okay, they're in action on this plan. So I think that will help you a lot. I think we could probably skip ahead to, since I already talked about task one, so we can go on to, and so the core planning team, again, this is just a group of people that will, and I don't know if, it might be your task force, your infrastructure task force, but that really serves as just kind of a sounding board for this planning process. It goes through them before it comes to you. We'll look at, what do you want to incorporate in this plan? All your off-reservation areas. Do you want to look at land acquisition as a part of that, like future land that you'd like to bring in to name that? And then what parts do you want to do some conceptual master planning for? I mean, you'll do kind of planning for all of your reservation, but are there areas that you want to hone in even more that your funders want to see? So that core planning team, and it can be made up of, you can have a member of your general public to be part of that too. That's up to you guys and what that looks like. And that'll be at the very beginning of the process. And then that work plan that I already hit on. Sorry, we can go forward. There you go. And this is just an example of a work plan and a planning schedule I did for the Hoopa tribe. And again, it's just a framework. I mean, yours will be, specific to you, but it just shows like this is a formal process from the very beginning. And I think that it really helps, guide the process. It makes sure that everyone's involved, that everyone knows what's going on, and then it gives you something that's formalized that you can then show, to whoever you need to say, we're doing this. So support our efforts, basically. And that this phase will just happen in the first couple of months. Your deliverable is that work plan. And then we can go on to phase 2. So phase 2 is the kind of the meat and potatoes of the process. It includes your official kickoff, and then and that would be done, on site. We would do a virtual and then an on-site kickoff. We could, we'll develop. This will be in coordination with your staff, but I'll do it like a formal press release and community flyer. Really kicking off the planning process, because you want to generate excitement from your community and make sure that everyone is involved in this, because this is a long-term, vision plan. So to make sure that everyone's vision and ideas are incorporated into that. And again, that'll be based on your work plan, whatever you agree on and approve for that. So this planning process includes gathering background information, summarizing those findings, and that includes, using your existing plans, but also doing primary data research, surveys, public meetings, how you're going to collect that information. So it would be, collecting all of that and reviewing it and reporting on it. And I think that you all remember the reports that I did for like the infrastructure plan. So I mean, during this planning process, you'll be getting those same kinds of reports. It's not like you're just going to start the process and at the very end, here's your land use plan. Throughout the whole process, you'll be getting this kind of data reports. Like, this is what the information says, and that'll help you as leadership to make decisions and move forward, because now you have something like in black and white to see kind of where you're at. So that will be included in this process. And we can go on. Thank you. And then if you would like, and this would be included in kind in the final budget, or how many hours it is. I don't care. I'll just include that. if you want to include your high school youth and also your tribal college, if there's a professor and a teacher at the high school that wants to do like a semester project with the kids for planning and zoning, get them involved. It's really fun. I did this with my Alaska tribe, and this is a couple of the examples of the PowerPoints from the kids. They're hard to see, but what it resulted in was just a lot of excitement from the kids, from the high school kids. And now, I've been working with that tribe since the beginning of 2015. And now those kids have graduated and they're going to college and they're getting into different fields. Like, it opened up a whole new world to them that they didn't even really, know. So it just is really exciting. And the other part of that is, they're going to be staff. They're going to be in your seats, and they're going to say, where is that land use plan? If it's not, like, I think, well, like with Malakala, for example, I mean, it's used, like, everybody knows about it, and it's very well used through all these different administrations and all these students that are now working for the tribe. So it's needed. It makes sure that your vision is carried out for a long term, right? It's like this kind of built-in thing. So, and again, this will be decided at the preliminary planning during that work planning process. And you guys are driving, the bus here, and I'm just here to make sure everything happens and you get what you want and your goals are met. I help you to do that. But if this is something that you want to do, let's do it. And if you have people on board at the college and the high school, let's do it. If not, and it's not something you want to do, that's all right. This is one of the tribal elders. So another part of this was working with the elders. He was really excited because that's that photo of him when he was a young man with the dog, but making sure that the tribal elders are incorporated. I think that, again, you're designing this process to meet your needs both for your on-reservation citizens, your off-reservation citizens, but it's just, I guess what I'm trying to emphasize is this is your process and whatever you want that to look like, but to make sure that it is fully reflective of you all. So we can go ahead and move on. So adding stakeholders, this is an example, again, when I worked with Malakala and their plan, but we brought in the school district, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, regional, local government, so really looking at those special interest stakeholders. Again, you're the primary stakeholder, especially, when it comes to like BIA and other jurisdictions, but to have them at least invited to say, hey, we're doing this planning process, would you like to be included? And it's my understanding, I think the city of Pawnee is also doing maybe some zoning. So, just making sure that things are complementary and creating those relationships and kind of moving that forward. So again, you guys identify those people. That's not me. I want to make sure, like, I'm not here to say, you need to include, X, Y, and Z. No, you tell me who you want to include, I'll make sure they're included. Make sure they show up, be pounding on doors. So, and then here's the findings kind of summarized. And, we'll be looking at the housing, infrastructure, economy, your demographics, health, social programs, culture, lands and natural resources, energy, food systems, climate change, governance. I mean, this is going to include everything. When it says comprehensive, it means everything. And that'll be it. So yeah, and this this includes me working with your staff and then developing on their behalf, community flyers, just every communication, everything. I'll work in coordination with your staff and develop that on their behalf at their, and with you all. So just want to make sure it's like, it includes, this project includes everything. All right, you can go ahead and go forward. Thank you. So the planning retreat, that is the other thing that changed in this budget. Originally, I was proposing a planning retreat to, and I just kind of threw it out there, the Mescalero Apache tribe in New Mexico, because that's where I live. But I think that a planning retreat, no matter where you do it, is very, very important, and that would be for your council and, you know, your executive director, your leader, your staff, the kind of movers and shakers. Get you guys away from here for a couple of days, you know, 2.5, 3 days. Do an intensive planning retreat where you're not, I don't want to say burdened with day-to-day activities, but where you have less likeliness to be wandering away, you know, where I can keep your attention. And this is something that be a very involved planning process. Be looking at, you know, doing an in-depth SWOT analysis and an in-depth your political and your economic and technology, you know, all of these different kind of activities, doing conceptual mapping so you can really look at where do we want things and having those conversations. So the cost for the retreat is not included in this budget, but my time is. So, you know, wherever we have it, it's just, but I really, and I know that's hard, you know, for councils especially to approve something for themselves. They, you know, it's always, everybody else comes first, right? Like a parent. But sometimes you have to take care of yourself, and you're taking care of, it's not you taking care of yourself, you're taking care of your community. So I really would try to encourage you guys to do that. Okay. And this is an example from that same group of, we did it in Ketchikan, Alaska, which was, it's like a 45-minute or an hour ferry ride away from their reservation. Alrighty. And then this will include, you know, setting your goals, objectives, your general policy, creating that strategic implementation strategy. And this is, you know, and to emphasize again, this isn't me. I mean, I'll be facilitating, helping you, assisting you in this, but, you know, this is going to be a very coordinated, hands-on process where you all are involved in your staff, or, you know, to make sure that this plan is implemented and it's realistic and it meets your needs and future expectations. So all of these things, you know, setting goals, we'll be doing that in coordination. The mapping, again, I'll work with your staff on that, but they'll be responsible for actually doing the technical components of that by generating those maps. And you guys have, you know, great talent. Obviously, I don't have to tell you that in-house. So, alrighty, we can go ahead and move on. Thank you. So that process will be the longest kind of portion of the project, and it'll take 6 to 8 months to complete. And then again, so your final deliverables for that phase are your the formal plan, not the final plan, but the formal plan, your mapping and your survey results, and that formal plan will be you know, revised. It's going to go through multiple revisions. Everyone's going to be reviewing it, providing comments, whatnot, before it gets to the final phase. And then I think we can go ahead and go to phase. I guess I'm like ahead of myself in these. I apologize. So the phase 4 is the zoning and design standards, and that once your land use plan is developed and everybody's agreed on, you know, we want to see residential in this area, and we'd like to see mixed use in this area, and this area is completely off limits because it's cultural, and we actually don't even really want to, you know, talk about it because it's personal, you know, it's confidential. It's okay with just kind of generally, or, you know, because I know all tribes are different in how they want to approach cultural lands and you know, kind of off-limit areas. So all of those will be kind of worked out during the land use planning process. And then your zoning map and design standards and the zoning text will be what you use to really enforce that land use plan, which will, you know, because that land use, I guess I should step back for a minute. Your land use plan is going to serve multiple objectives. You know, you're going to be able to use it for decision making, to be able to access funding, and also when you're making decisions at the legislative level to approve, to deny development, and then also for enforcement, to be able to make sure, you know, have something to fall back onto for enforcement. And that I'll do in coordination with your staff also. And then I think we can go on. Thank you. So then phase 5 is the input in the final revisions. And remember, by this point, your core planning team will have seen this document, several times. You guys will probably have already seen it a couple of times too. You'll definitely have already had all the data, the information, but it'll be that final input, making sure that everything is okay, nothing's changed, or if something, say whatever, say another COVID or something happens, if there's a shift, then it's like, okay, we need to look at it because, you don't know. But so that's what that last phase is about. And then if you want to release, and I guess it depends too on your tribal laws. Some tribes have policy that they require, a public input or public review. Some don't have that requirement, that legal requirement, but still like to put the plan out to the public for comment. You'll be able to manage that. And then that time frame is about 3 months, or maybe even less, probably less, because it will have already gone through, everybody will already have had their fingerprints all over it. So, and I think that's it. Yeah. So, yep. So here's your 5 phases, just out to the 18 months. And then the budget, I think is the next slide. So for this, the final budget's $147,294, and that includes 749, at minimum 749 consulting hours, and then 14 on-site days that are just included in that cost as pro bono. I really wanted to get this cost down, and then just travel for mileage and expenses. And again, this is a not to exceed amount. I can tell you that, let me rephrase that, a not to exceed amount in terms of dollars, not a not to exceed in terms of time. Because, I think that it will probably go way over 749 consulting hours, and that's okay. I want you guys to end up with an amazing plan. So I just want to make sure that that's the not to exceed amount. And then I did take off because this is something that I'm doing at C Renewal, is having like this customer appreciation program where, clients that I serve that come back, I want to make sure to be able to give them a discount. So I've offered that to you guys, that 3% off the consulting fee. So then that, kind of brought your consulting fee down to $143. And then I just added back in the mileage and the travel for the trips back and forth. And that's how you got the $147,294. And then I'm just, put that in there, just out of scope lodging, that's my typical, that's my fee, my typical fees. And it won't apply, but I want to make sure it's in there just for, purposes. And the community meetings and planning retreat, which I already had on, that's not included in the budget. And I think that's it. So here's your comparison to that original budget. Again, I was able to knock everything down, but I want to be clear that the original budget, the work that went into it, and the work that will go into it, and the final deliverable, they're the same. It's not taking away from your final product. So I want to emphasize that, except for your GIS, but I'll be working with them on that, and then the retreat costs too. But I think if we go down to the next, actually it shows, yeah. So here you'll be able to see. I know it's kind of tiny. Apologize, but you'll be able to see the hours here are like the same, except for, and then this is the 414. This is for the zoning, or the mapping, I should say, not the zoning, the mapping. And then this one is for the zoning, because I'll be working in coordination. I'll draft the ordinances, but I'll work in coordination with your planning committee and staff here. And again, I think just from experience of doing this for a long time now and knowing myself, it'll be a lot more than 749 hours, but it's going to be a document that's going to be with you guys for a long time and a solid framework. So I think that Yeah, and you guys, I just see so much, and I also want to emphasize that I don't, just typically give away my services, but at the same time, I do for tribes that I work with that are really enthusiastic, and I can see that they're actually working and beside me, working the project. I will do whatever I can to take you, all the way to the end and beyond, and I'll do, anything for you, and I think all of my clients would agree with that. So but I see so much, you guys there's just so much that you're doing here, and the enthusiasm that council has and that your staff have, there's so much opportunity. So I think with a strong land use plan, which is really a requisite to you have to have that. I think that, it's just gonna be a home run. It really will. And you'll be able to make it uniquely yours, because you guys are so unique in that you have, your land here, but you have land other places. And so really making this a land use plan, not like, the city of Tulsa would have, or even Hoopa, or even Metlakatla, it's something that's totally unique to you, because you guys are completely unique in your surroundings, and your, the way that you use your lands and your goals. So, I took a lot of your time. Do you guys have any questions?
I'll just make before any questions. So today we had a meeting with USDA, and during our conversation with them, they talked about master planning. What's your master plan? Do you have a master plan? And this would tie into that. So some of the conversation we had about the housing, what are you guys going to do with it? What type of housing do you want? Is it multifamily? Is it, single family? Is it apartment? I mean, different things like that can be addressed as we do the land use. Also, Pawnee Nation College, they're a big part of this. It took a long time for the college to get up and running, strong, and they are very strong, and that can be shown in what we're doing with the rep and how they're tied into that. And so also with this too, we're having a meeting with them to talk about how they can be incorporated into the land use if they have any funding. But also, if you didn't know, that they are getting into the GIS mapping too with the college, and so. They have that software. They have, can't think of anything. They have the plotter, the Trimble, so a Trimble unit. It talks to the satellite, so you can lay out where the water lines are. So we have maps that are old. Some of them are correct, some of them are not. But doing these different things using that Trimble and using the students, to be involved in that, we can map where all the fire hydrants are. We can map where all the street lights are. I mean, we can have this digitized map and have that. So really working with the college, I think, and tied in with the students, I think it's going to be a big thing working with this if you guys approve it. So,
and that'll allow you guys to have a whole capital improvements section too.
Yeah. And again, the discussion we're going to have too is, what can they do with us in partnership, and what funding, would be available to actually put towards this as well. So just leave it there.
Does anybody have questions for Ms. Wilson?
I don't have a question for Ms. Wilson, but I do have a question for us. Where's the funding coming from? Is it
Hold on,
part
before
of?
we get into that loaded question, let me ask some questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, can you explain what the difference is? Because you hit it, you were kind of segueing into it at the very end about a land use plan. What is the difference between this comprehensive plan and zoning project versus just having a comprehensive land use plan?
Sure. So the zoning component, the zoning project component of this is the implementing mechanism to the land use plan. So if you have a land use plan, but you don't have an official zoning map and you don't have a zoning code, you can't legally enforce the land use plan. You have a plan that says housing should be over here and industrial should be over here, but if you don't have an official land use, or excuse me, an official zoning map, and zoning map is a big part of that too, because I see a lot of tribes that have a zoning code, but they don't have a zoning map. So unless you have like kind of that trifecta at the legislative level, it's really hard to enforce it properly. I mean, you can make just, but to do it in the proper manner, you really need that zoning component to be able to enforce that.
Okay, and is this going to, because you're touching on it, and I'm trying to understand the whole process, because that was my first question, was like, well, why are we going to have a zoning project when we don't have a land use plan, first of all? So there's the land use plan, and then now this zoning project, which is going to develop a zoning map, and then does that include the zoning ordinances?
Yes, yeah. So, and then the zoning, the comprehensive planning, the land use plan portion of the project would come first, and then the second part of the project would be developing the zoning code, the text, and your design standards text for that, and then mapping, official mapping.
Okay, yeah, and then that went to my next question, which was, what is the need for zoning ordinances and design standards? But then that, Chris, you kind of touched upon that with just like the USDA now kind of stating, well, all these projects are great, but you're just going to have basically like a checkerboard unless they're all, kind of
right.
Assigned areas, and then the standards and that ordinance that would be in place. So we can enforce, whatever we need to, whether it's fines, whether it's, cleanup or those types of things.
Right. Well, and incentivize, I'm sorry, and to incentivize development also, because developers want to see protection, right? They want to see protection for their property and their business. They want to know that if they're putting in, a retail service-based business, that you're not going to allow next year a sand and gravel pit next door. They want to have that confidence to be able to invest. So I think it protects that. And also for, although fee land, it's always like a kind of great, well, it's not, it is kind of great. It depends on the situation. But with fee lands, I mean, if you have a strong land use plan and strong zoning placed in order, and fee development, non-Indian comes in and tries to do something that's outside of that scope, you have a lot more, influence over, something in the long development happening that you don't want to happen. You will have a lot of control over that.
Just to add to that, too, so the enforcement part, right? So it's not like, we have a housing addition area, you can't just put a trailer house, right? I mean, there's certain standards that the developer or whoever, they have to go by these. If you don't go by these, you're going to get fined or you're going to do something. So, I mean, we have established ordinance that they have to go by, regulations they have to go by, and we have enforcement behind that to push it. So, and we've all talked about, development on different areas, the museum, the Buffalo, and different things. Everybody wants a piece of that land, right? Everybody, and we don't have, we have a lot, but there's not really a lot, right? So this actually puts that in a document, right, and says this is that portion, and this is what it's going to be used for, which could always be changed at your guys' level, but it at least has that there in writing for all of us to know how to move forward.
And then, was this proposal presented to our land committee? Or is this just kind of the first stop?
So I don't know how the process worked previously. I've just kind of got into this since March, so I know it was previously presented to PBC. I don't know what the process was before that. So this is coming back to the PBC.
Okay, and just my question, because then that would have been answered already, about how are we potentially going to, fund or even entertain this proposal? Right. So that's the reason I asked that question. And then in your proposal, you talked about the out-of-scope and add-on amounts for other professionals. can you give like a circumstance or an instance for potential use of those that would be, beyond your expertise with this proposal?
Right. Well, I wouldn't say, I didn't include that for for additional services out of scope. Like if you were to say, we want a different, I can't even think of, I don't want to say a housing plan because there'll be housing incorporated in that. But if you said, we need a standalone housing plan to meet, the housing criteria, then that would be like a separate project, So I included the fee schedule there for anything that's like out of scope, just to say if it's not under the scope of this, which is obviously really broad, that it covers like a lot of things, that would require out of scope services or a separate contract.
And then now I will turn it over to Councilwoman Butler.
So I was wondering where the money was coming from. But I was also asking during the presentation, I was also asking Donna, did this come to property? It would have been nice if the property committee, could have, reviewed it and done all of that. And did it come to property? No.
Not so much to the committee. It came on the tails of the other proposal that, on the work that you've been doing, you went ahead and developed this proposal.
Right.
So we didn't entertain it as committee. It was at council level.
That's right. It's council level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we asked her.
Okay. Yeah, and I just apologize because like I said, that was, prior to me. So.
Would it be an ARPA spending since this is infrastructure stuff, correct? Is that
Yes.
what we designated that funding for?
Yes. And again, this is going to kind of go into what I was going to report earlier. We are just now finishing up the audit, and we have already had the directors do their budgets for budget call, and so now there's a final step that we've got to meet on, in which we take all this information and we find out exactly how much is left, and then it's the council's decision to decide how to prioritize. But, because we did hire a lot of different consultants during this time to do things, and included in that balance of money will be unused consultant money, because there were some that we did not follow through with. So I think it's just kind of a waiting game until the audit gets done here within 2 weeks, and the budget call, we finish it out.
Yes.
So,
Well, and there's also, oh, go ahead.
I'm just thinking real positive. Because I'm pretty sure we can, because like I said, a lot of the consultants didn't use their money up. We just don't know how much is left without all these final pieces put together. But I would encourage, and it's the council's decision, but I remember when we first started this with Amy, and it has really taken us a long way. All of the projects that were just presented tonight, the council prioritized and picked those, and just look at look at where it's taken us. So I'm just really excited about it. And on this in particular, it's a very complicated project, and I think the price is real reasonable because you are an attorney and you know Indian law. You know how to write codes and ordinances, and I just think that it's greatly reduced. So can't tell you now, but we are getting to the point now where we're having to make these decisions.
And then if I could jump in here and say one thing, I was talking with Treasurer Chapman on this, and Chris as well, is that next week we're meeting with the Pawnee Nation College because they have a grant for a land use plan. So they're able to put some funds toward this as well. However, we didn't get the information yet because Ms. Amy was here today to meet with USDA, so we thought it was a good time for her to present to the council tonight. But once we get through with the budget and the treasurer is on that call with PNC, we're going to have hard numbers then for you. But we wanted to at least have a chance for you to see the proposal and all that jazz.
And then, yes, Councilwoman Kimball.
Thank you very much. Amy, thank you. very much. It's very comprehensive, and all the work that the staff has also put in to make this a reality. Coming out of corporate environment, nothing is done without a plan, folks. Nothing. Whether it's a strategy, whether for any little thing, for a project, an IT project, a building project, whatever, you have to have a plan in place to do that. And this is a great opportunity. We've spent a lot of time, we spent a lot of energy on it. We do want to be very smart in our land use. We've got lots going on, and it seems like we're building and building. And I can envision, the college building something new, and us, having a council house, and us having a children's. Who knows? I mean, really, the sky's the limit for us. So I'm very much a proponent for it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, Vice President Canujo.
Are you sure, Councilwoman Harry? You can go. Okay. Ms. Wilson, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the proposal that you presented to us this evening as well. I agree with the council members here that having a plan and having everything there for any future funding that we want to go after is very important for us, and so I do agree that it's something that's needed. I'm on the same understanding with Councilwoman Butler as where the money's going to come from as well. One of the questions that I do have is that this proposal, is it just encompassing the campus here that we're on, or is it going to be for the other entities like TDC? They have, the land out there by the highway, and then they also have the land they purchased in Yale. It's going to be, we have the 1,200 acres at Merrimack, Chilocco. Those, is it going to encompass all of those as well? Nebraska. In Nebraska.
Everything that you want.
Okay.
You can do that in, I think, the design of the plan. Okay, then that's good, 30,000 acres, and even include, I would recommend including a section, a land acquisition section, even that identifies, and you may not want to identify it by, because I guess then depending on if it's a public document or not, but including a land acquisition section that will help you to get funding for additional lands, that help you to identify, and if you do have lands that you want to publicly identify, and if you have planned uses for those, say we want to acquire this land for housing. That said, that's formalized, it's adopted by council, so now if an opportunity comes up that land is for sale and you want to do it, you can move right now. You don't have to go through this whole, you'll still have to go through a process, but it's already decided on, and then your staff has something that says, we want housing on this land. So now you have something in your back pocket to get funding not only for the land, but for the housing, and you already have a decision that's been made at both the community level and at the tribal level, because remember, you're going to have the community saying, as part of this process and being like, these lands are really important to me. So yeah, I think that, it's definitely including all of your lands, both your off-reservation lands, your on-reservation lands, and then land. This is your plan. So, that number is all encompassing of whatever it is that you want.
Okay. I was just asking because, as far as the cost of this, I know that Executive Director Jennifer, she had mentioned the college could carry some of this cost, but I was thinking maybe even TDC, if they can, cover some of the costs as well, since it's going to incorporate some of their land as well, whether it's the land they currently have, the one that they have at Yale, and those kinds of things. Just trying to look at other avenues for us to lower our costs on Pawnee Nation side, but go into these other entities as well. Then the other question I had was with the college. You'd mentioned like classes and those kinds of things. Chris mentioned too that the college does currently have GIS software that they're going to plan on teaching over there as well. They have the equipment to do so. I was curious if this could be something that would be incorporated in there as well, that could be that could do that. And two, once you get to the mapping with GIS and everything else, I'm not that familiar with GIS as far as the, going to consultants and that type of thing, but when you produce the final document, is there licensing from a certain group or firm that you have to have, or could this be a project that the college works on that would reduce some of the costs? I mean, I'm just kind of thinking outside the box, I guess, in that sense.
As long as, the students, and it sounds like they have the Esri software and the licensing for that. But because that portion of the budget has already been kind of taken out for the Pawnee Nation, or, just the technical side of it. But, I think that we can definitely also look at different funding opportunities for a land use plan too, if that's, something that you guys want to do. Again, this was just kind of asked of me to do a proposal by council to do a proposal for a land use plan. But I think that, we can also look at different funding opportunities that might be available for a land use. The only thing with funding opportunities for land, they're going to be very specific on what you can have and what you can't have in that plan. But we can still work, we can work around it. So, we'll figure it out, because at the end of the day, you need a plan that fits your needs and that's going to match you and what's going to best carry you guys forward.
Yeah.
And I can answer you on the GIS licensing, and so Pawnee Nation has our own license through GIS through the Department of Interior. The program that the Pawnee Nation College has is through a different program. I believe it's called Land Shark, but I've been in a couple of meetings with them. That technology ties in with Esri, so their interface is a little bit easier. So working in the GIS Esri environment, it's very technical, and I mean, if you don't work with it all the time, it's been a while since I've been in there and done stuff, it's hard to remember how to do different functions. But this interface of land, I think it's Land Shark, it makes it a little bit easier to navigate that system and how to do the inputting and stuff like that. So, but we have that ownership. Everything would be ours, and so.
Oh, okay. I think it's Land Scout.
It might be Land Scout, yeah.
Yeah, and that was the thing too, and the reason why they have that is through that NTI grant that they got.
Yes.
And whenever they took that on and everything else, that was the question, was Esri. I mean, Esri's offered to the tribe right now, but those are just kind of the things I was thinking about, just trying to look at ways to help reduce costs and those kind of things and help out in that. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other comments? One other thing that I would like to also bring is, we like to provide equal opportunity. So I would even suggest, doing like a RFP or something to other potential consultants, just so we're try to utilize, all of our funds to the best of the ability, and then, look at other proposals and, maybe just see, what those same services would cost the nation, as what am I trying to say? You had offered that that rate, reduced rate, because, we are basically a repeat customer. We would be a repeat customer, but it would just be eye-opening to see something, of this caliber and the cost that it would be to the nation at 100%, So, anyways, just something to consider, because like I said, I'm all about equal opportunity to everybody, so. So what would we like to do to table until we get, some hard numbers, if we can get a motion to that effect?
Yes, I'd make the motion to table till we finish the budget call.
Okay, I got a motion on the table to table the planning and zoning proposal until the budget call is finalized. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second by Councilwoman Butler. If no further discussion, we'll call for the vote.
Jordan Canujo?
Yes.
George Gardner, yes. Carol Chapman?
Yes.
Cynthia Butler?
Yes.
Donna Hare?
Uh-huh.
Gene Evans?
Yes.
Sammy Kimball?
Yes.
Okay, at this time, we're going to move to new business number 3, Budget Committee recommendations. Treasurer Chapman, I turn this over to you. Yes, thank you for attending.
And this is just creating a new budget. NAGPRA was funded this year. As you all remember, it was not funded last year. And so it is funded, and the amount that it was funded is $78,700. Yeah, there you go. So anyhow, that's real happy news. So it's just setting up the new budget. So, yeah. I'll make a motion if there's no questions.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor to approve the 2023 NAGPRA budget by Treasurer Chapman, seconded by Councilwoman Butler. Any other questions? No questions, we will call for the vote.
Jordan Canuto,
Yes.
George Garber, yes. Carol Chapman,
Yes.
Cynthia Butler,
Yes.
Donna Hare,
Uh,
Gene Evans,
Yes.
Sammy Kimball.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item B, approval of resolution 2340, ARPA allocation for the MIPCON training.
Okay, this is a request made by the financial office and our new, it's getting to be official, our self-governance. Yes, Laura May. And this is, Laura May has, and James is here. They made this request because, as I understand it, and James can elaborate, the staff have not received training in this for over 10 years, I think is what they said. Was that right?
Right, and so this is something that that Laura May has requested, and we absolutely agree, is this is for staff. Many times directors get training and they go to travel, but our staff does not. And so this has been requested for 3 staff people, as well as our Treasurer Chapman. And was Madam President going as well? Okay,
I think
so.
yes. Well, I think it was 5.
Well, I was
so-
under the impression that it was 5 officials, but
Yeah.
I didn't know that it had been designated. But
Okay.
to speak on the history, yes, that is correct. This MIP is our bill of MIP, which is our finance software that finance utilizes. And going into finance as an employee, there is no training on MIP. There is a manual that's online, or you can contact MIP for training. Even most recently, I think it was maybe 2 years ago, we converted to the cloud. And again, that was just done with, online training that they had, virtual training. Coming on, as an employee I'm speaking from the payroll, there are no SOPs, there are no policies or procedures in place that tell you how to navigate through MIP.
Yeah.
And you really have to be familiar with MIP and its little intricacies and closing windows before moving on into certain processes within it, because you may be sitting there doing something correct and it's correct and you're trying to submit and it won't let you submit. Well, it's because you have a window open somewhere, or somebody else, another designated user, is in that same portal. So it won't let you save, but it doesn't tell you that. It's not user friendly. It's not essentially Windows based. It's like an old database software. However, we utilize it because we use fund accounting. And it's kind of like, a widely used software that's utilized for fund accounting within tribes. So I'll speak to it on that level. And then, like it's mentioned, all of our not all of them, but we have two acting co-directors right now. They have never been to training. Our former director did go to training. It was down in Texas. And then came back. We have staff that utilize it every day. Again, it's just kind of like a learn as you go thing. And you learn based off of what the person before you, their knowledge of the system. And so if that person wasn't appropriately trained or, doesn't have the knowledge of how the system completely functions, then that doesn't get passed on down to you either. So that kind of tells you the activity, I guess, of the users within our MIP system right now. So should they get that training, hopefully things will increase more efficiently and be able to utilize the system to its optimacy.
So this is for 6 staff and our treasurer Chapman to attend.
So
Right.
7?
7.
And who else going?
James, do you have the names of staff?
Just the positions for.
Yeah, just positions.
Okay,
I
so-
mean, is it all of accounting that's going? Or all of finance?
It's finance. It's the key finance people who work in MIP. So
Great.
you have to be on MIP to be able to have the training.
Okay, good.
This is the agenda up there of what will be presented, and as you can see, it is actual, the topics are actually really relevant to all of the issues in finance currently. So,
And just another thing to throw out there, because I just seen it, data importing. We utilize Paycom. Paycom sends us reports, and then in turn, we have to turn around and redevelop that report. It comes to us in either PDF or Excel format. So we have to take that Excel format that they have and manipulate it in order for it to be imported into MIP. And before we would have to do that, we would have to do basically double entry. We would have to do it in Excel and do it in MIP. And just, I believe it was last year, they just converted it to the appropriate CSV format so that it could be imported into MIP. So it cut that work in half. But, if the report could come directly from Paycom that way, it would, eliminate maybe about 2 or 3 days' work of
Jeez.
payroll staff. Yeah.
And this is something that we're going to request every year because one of the things we're pushing is cross-training. Everybody should be able to do something. Currently, certain people are only doing certain things. So if someone's gone, we're crippled. We have to have cross-training. So it's really vital.
I have a question.
Yes, Councilwoman Butler.
I just have a question because this is ARPA spending ARPA money, and we just got finished not taking a proposal to use ARPA money, and we don't have a true account of what we can spend yet. So I understand the importance. I understand the importance and the need, but should this be something that we should wait until we find out what that true number is, and then, it could be something that could be allocated?
Treasurer Chapman, do you want to answer? Because I thought that this had already been discussed by budget, because this request was made maybe about 4 or 5 months ago by Laura. And I think that was one of the first things that they did was went to the ARPA to see if there were unobligated funds. So I'll let Councilwoman Chapman present.
right. And did we have the sheet on it? James sent it. James is here, so for the actual, where we're taking it out of the ARPA fund and the amount.
Right. And
That was in there.
We didn't
Yeah.
submit a budget, no.
It's on the, yeah. Oh, my goodness. No, that's not it. That's the agenda.
I thought there was a spreadsheet on the back end of that.
You see? It's agenda. It's the agenda. But we did identify the funds for that out of one of the ARPA lines.
they have it identified?
Yes.
So the funding was from unallocated funds that we didn't use in 2021. So it's not depleting anything from our budget. It was approved through our budget committee.
Does that satisfy you?
No,
Want
not really.
additional
It's the
information, or-
principle of the matter is what I'm speaking of. You know, we're
Oh, so
approving
it's the
something now
principle.
for something for ARPA,
Yeah.
and we just denied, or didn't deny, we tabled something for ARPA as well, until we get a true account of how much money is literally in there. And I thought that was the whole point of saying it a while
I
ago.
think the rationale for that is, when we started doing the budget last year and we were trying to get a balanced budget, preparing for the end of 2024, we cut back each department's budgets, axed them severely, and we took out travel and training
Yeah.
of all of them. So none of them got it. But this request was made by Laura May specifically because we are now entering self-governance. Friday, we talk about the tribal shares. We're getting ready to actually now do the reorganization, and we will be spending our money differently. We will have different amounts of money, as I understand it, different methods. We're all learning. But it is going to be even more important than ever that the staff have training on it, just because we are getting ready to act. We can go back and look at that.
Because I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
yeah.
Like I said,
Oh, I
I
know we
understand
are.
the importance
But
of why
you-
we need it. It's just, you know, we're
Right.
talking about ARPA
Right.
spending and all this other
Well,
stuff.
and actually,
We got
I
James
don't know
on.
that right now because they just now did the,
Well, and we have,
haven't had our meeting yet. I mean,
When is the conference? It's a conference, right?
It's in October, but you could have, we're already going to pay $200 more per person because the 995 window ended May the 31st. And then it went to 1095 for July the 31st. And after July 31st, now it's 1195.
right, that was
So we're spending $1,000 more right now. Who knows what's going to happen in 2 weeks? Probably 200 more.
but to answer your question for the finance director, we do have an applicant. We're getting ready to interview, so hopefully that position will be filled.
But
soon.
right now, you should have some savings.
Yeah, so
Well,
that, I
yes.
mean, that's what we're
However-
speaking to. Okay, let me conduct the meeting here, please. Okay, I do see the point that Councilwoman Butler had made. It's just up to the council, what's the wishes? Do we want to entertain a motion to table to identify or see if there are other funding sources? Right now, the way that I see it, what the difference is between the proposal that was just given tonight and then this proposal is that they've already done the research to see if there are funds available, and that's what she said, that it came from the 2021 allocated amount, so that's funding a source that's identified. But if you want to go back and see if there are other funding sources, that's an option too. So I'll entertain a motion for either of those two actions.
President Nuttall, I'm going to make a motion to approve this training based on the thought that we will find the best available financial sources available. I think once we figure out maybe finance does have some money available because we have not had a director, that would be wonderful. Otherwise, it's a must-have. I don't want to drag our feet and then not have.
Okay, the item that's listed, though, is approval of this resolution
Yes.
2340 out of ARPA, so.
Yes, so I'm going to ask that we approve Resolution 2340 dated August the 15th for the MIP con training for our 7 users within the nation in the amount of $15,080.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, got a motion on the floor to approve Resolution 2340, ARPA allocation MIPCON training, seconded by Secretary Gardapi. Any further discussion? No further discussion, we'll call for the vote.
Jordan Canujo,
Yes.
George Gardapi, yes. Carol Chapman?
Yes.
Cynthia Butler?
I'm going to abstain, and only because I'm for it, I just want to know, is there other resources
We'll
to go
find
for it?
out.
And it's needed. So I will abstain.
Donna Hare,
Aho.
Gene Evans,
Yes.
Sammy Kimball.
Yes.
Okay, the next item we have is item C, approval of Pawnee Public School donation request.
Okay, on this one, I think we have the letter that she can show that where the request was made to us to fund, was it $8,000, Jamie? Okay, which had been made before to Pawnee Public Schools, and it was discussed in the meeting that where they did not use all that funding and they had $2,000 left. And so what the Budget Committee decided to do after discussion was to go ahead and, because of the needs of our students, make an award of $2,000 from the Pawnee Business Council donation line item, which there is plenty of money in there right now to make that donation. And then the school is going to be asked to submit to us receipts and invoices showing how they spent it. And then if they need more, we were going to give it in $2,000 increments, but based on the need that they had because they did not spend the previous amount. So that's what was decided to bring from the Budget Committee.
Do you have any questions for Treasurer Chapman? I have a question. What was the amount previously awarded?
$8,000.
They gave them $8,000 last year, so they spent $6,000. And, I don't want to sound like the Grinch or anything, but, we also have a JOM program that we support. And Title VI does receive funds from, funds to the Pawnee Public Schools. So what is the accounting of those funds, or can somebody reach out to the school to find out? Yes.
I wasn't going to say anything, but, it's hard not to say anything whenever you see discrepancies, and the school saw discrepancies in some receipts of that funding. And Miss Ryan, before she passed away, was going to bring that to the nation to let them know, hey, I don't think your funding was spent correctly. And, she passed away and she never did bring that up, but that's lingering out there. And I'm glad that we're asking for receipts, because I think that accountability needs to happen. And, but we do support JOM, and JOM, they took out blood quantum on JOM, so they're able to fund a lot more students, but they're not doing descendants. Title VI is just descendancy. I'm not for sure the numbers on how many descendants that is, but they're non-tribal members. They just have to be a descendant. They're actually not even tribal members, they're descendants. So those numbers have changed now, so JOM covered all of those who have CDIBs, membership cards, and stuff like that. So I'm just throwing that out there, but just to make the comment. But yes, I'm glad that we are going to do receipts, and I'm in support of it. It's just the accountability needs to be there.
Okay. Any other questions?
No further questions. I'll entertain a motion to approve the request.
I'll make a motion that we award it in increments with documentation submitted to the council as to the services.
And it's an expenditure report that we received from the school.
Right.
We can
And
request
that
an
was
expenditure.
discussed at length in the Budget Committee meeting.
Okay.
So.
I got a motion on the floor to approve the Pawnee Public Schools donation request. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Councilman Evans. No further discussion. We'll call for the vote.
Jordan Canuho,
Yes.
George Gardner, yes. Carol Chapman,
Yes.
Cynthia Butler,
Yes.
Donna Hare,
Aho.
Gene Evans,
Yes.
Sammy Kimball.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Under new business, item number 4, we're moving to discussion on the Shalaco Solar Project. Who is presenting on that?
Hello, Council. I'll be presenting on this with the help of Dylan, one of our consultants that reached out to Pawnee Nation. Just to kind of give a little back history, because I know there's new council here. We started this project around when COVID was at its peak. We started looking at ways to start diversifying revenue for the tribe. At that time, with previous leadership, was a priority. It was looking at ways to start diversifying our revenue. So one of the things that we came across was working with Dylan, one of our consultants that utilizes, Indian land for solar projects. So one of the processes that we did with utilizing our BIA grant, started looking at our campus here, one of the plots of land that we thought was viable was the Sulaco land. So we've been in talks for several years now. We went through the property committee, been in works with Chris and the utility commission. I forget, it was several months ago, but the utility commission voted on it and approved it, that they were in favor with it. So we're working hand in hand with the commissioners, because I know they're going to play a valuable part in the development of this solar farm. So I know back in July 27th, I sent y'all this PowerPoint. We had a meeting. I know some councils went to that Nation to Nation with USDA on the 8th. But what you'll see here is kind of just the flow of what we went over through the 8th, what I shared on the 27th. But this was a great way that we can start working, bringing in more revenue to the tribe. One of the things that we started exploring and looking at our assets and our capabilities was, this was a good method to move forward with working with Dylan, Utility Commission, because this would be little impact to our capacity. I know we're limited of tribal staff and other resources, but this allows us to develop this partnership with them to take advantage of, developing a large-scale solar farm and having a larger return versus what we're renting that property out with another individual for other purposes. So here, this gives us the capability to start doing that. I'll pass this over to Dylan, because it's a little bit on the, technical side, so I'm going to utilize his, brain. But at the same time, I'll jump in and out on my end, and Chris can fill in to jump in at any time too, as looking at the next phase and start looking at the feasibility, because what we're trying to do is move on to a 3-phase study and get in with the interconnection. So at the same time, we'll come back to the council to get final approval. What we'll be moving towards most recently is to start that 3-phase study. And what we'll look at is developing the resolution and the land lease to utilize this property for a large-scale solar farm. And then while we do our 3-phase study, we'll have all our information and making sure that, council, when they make that final decision, it's a valuable decision, as well as we've done our due diligence on our end to maximize our capacity and maximize our return on a tribal side and both parties, and getting a larger revenue to the nation as we look at repurposing that revenue coming in trial for other purposes that have been talked about today and in the near future. So I'll pass this over to Dylan. I know he called me, he said he was having some internet connection, but if he does, I'll jump in and go through it. But Dylan, if you want to go.
Ryan. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me.
What's his full name?
I'm hearing every few words. So, but
I just want to write it down.
Yeah, give me
Hold
one.
on just a second.
Oh, sure, yeah, no problem.
Lewis, like Lewis and Clark.
Sounds like it's coming in really good now.
Thank you. Okay, can you say this is our consultant?
Really happy to go through the council and be here, talk to you guys about the lease income. I mean, I understand that, the cattle, I think we have that kind of detailed up here. So before I continue, can everyone hear me okay? we've identified about 823 acres of land. And within that land, there's about 600 usable acres to actually put on the grid for a renewable energy project. And so, we've, like Brian discussed, you know, we kind of went through some of the due diligence and a lot of the due diligence and the discovery to make sure that it's a good candidate. So this is that land right there. Currently, it's being used as cattle grazing land, and we don't plan on changing that. If you decide to, you can, but our system is designed to be able to utilize what you currently have going on there, which is cattle grazing. So if you like, just go to the next slide there, and I can go right through them. Some of them probably don't even, you know, we can go quicker than others. So we specialize in renewable energy for nonprofits, for schools, municipalities, tribes. I personally am from South Dakota. I was born and raised there. The Lakota Sioux Wapco Indian tribe existed in South Dakota. I grew up there my whole life. We got a big heart for it. You guys think? Sorry, guys.
Well, here, Dylan. I know we're having volume issues on our end, so I'll kind of run through this, and then when it gets to the technical questions, I'll let you chime in. So basically, what we looked at 800 acres out of our Sulaco land that's accessible. So out of the 800, 600 is valuable for the solar farm. So what we could do is utilize this full 600 for the solar farm, but what gives us the unique opportunity is we can look at doing other options if we want to grow crops around it, allow cattle to migrate around it, but we have other 200 acres to do other opportunities as well. So we have interchangeable opportunities to utilize our Sulaco land. So what you see here is just projects that they've done in Indian country. So, you know, all those tribes on the left side, you know, they're accessible, or we can reach out to them as a good resource to validate all the work that they've done in Indian country. So this just kind of gives you a large scale picture of what they've done. Just to kind of give you a picture. So what we're talking about is the interconnection. That's what's the most valuable piece right now, is to get into interconnection, because there's only so many slots when you start talking about access to utility companies and stuff like that. So what we'll do is work with this company to start the three-phase planning. But while we do the study process, you know, we have the opportunity to withdraw at any point if it's not feasible. But as we get into the interconnection and we get selected, we don't have any access to competitors of taking that access point. So we kind of lock ourselves in and we get kind of first opportunity of it. That's why it's kind of important to start getting in the interconnected so we can do this study to see the feasibility study. So this is just kind of the study process of the three-phase, gives us opportunities to withdraw, and it allows us to do our due diligence, look at the financial study, and present that to council as we move forward. You go next slide.
And I'm still here too. I can hear you guys perfect now. Let me know at any point. But yeah, thank you, Brian.
He can hear us perfectly.
Okay. So again, one of the things that we're looking at, it does take a couple of deposits. You know, it's going to take some resources to get into that utility interconnection. What the unique opportunity that we have with Dylan is their company is going to take on that risk. So there is a risk component involved. But doing our pre-feasibility study, there's a lot of opportunity there. So developing this relationship, you know, we'll working with them, they'll put in that set of funds, allow us to start doing that study. that gives us an opportunity where, it puts no risk to the tribe, and it gives us the ability that it doesn't have any cost to us. But as we move forward through these different phases, some of the money is refundable, some is not. But again, doing our preliminary studies, this shows a very high feasibility project. So that's just kind of the process of the utility interconnection and what we'll start diving into. And at the same time, as we get further along, there's a 50%, 100%, but as we get further along, it just shows more promise to the nation and more value that it has. So you go to next slide. So again, this is going to be kind of show you what, the interconnection cost is, what the lease opportunity is. What we're looking at right now, currently we lease that land out for around $30,000 a year. What we're proposing is, while we do our study, this is where it gets beneficial to the tribe, and based on, we want to maximize that interconnection and get profitability on our side. So we want to make sure we get a high return on the nation. So out of this, we would look at promising, so you see here the property is currently at 34. So based off of what we get working with the utility companies and interconnection, we're looking at proposing we can bring in a revenue between 450 to 1,000. Well, he has a 600 to 1,000 per acre. So that's the revenue and opportunity that we'll have on the nation side versus making, just 34,000 for the whole 800 and something acres. So as we look at just looking at 600 acres, as we dive in and diversify an opportunity that outside of this lease, we have more economic avenues to bring in more money on top of this. This is just minimal based off the solar farm of what's being proposed and the opportunities there. It's at least minimum 600 and 1,000. And with the new tax credits and new things like that, we believe we get higher than 1,000 an acre with the new laws that passed with Biden, with the new tax credits and things like that, and energy incentives. So we'll take advantage of those as well. But again, just showing what the cash flow the payments will be. Again, none of this is going to be at risk at the nation, not going to be asked on the nation. So this is just something that we'll work with Dylan and what their assets are bringing to the table as we continue our study. So next slide. So again, this is going to take a couple years to do, but what we're trying to do is get in that interconnection, gives us a great opportunity where it minimizes competitiveness, but at the same time, there is, the quicker we do it, the quicker the return is. So what we're looking at is proposing, what you'll see here is the interconnection process, but at the same time, there's going to be NEPA review, site surveys, and things like that. Again, none of that's going to be, asked upon the tribe, but a lot of that study is going to be needing to be done to make sure that this is an adequate project. So this just kind of gives you kind of a review process. So once we start this process, and let's say we get in quarter 23, this will take between 8 to 12 months and possibly 1 to 2 years before construction even starts. But as long as we're in the interconnection, we don't lose our spot. We're just doing all our due diligence and doing our site survey and making sure that it's promising. Next slide. So this is just, again, us doing our due diligence, working with the interconnection, working with the utility company, making sure we maximize our return. As we're moving through this process, it leads into, the construction process and developing the plans and everything like that. And we can expedite some of this with all the work they've done with other tribes, but, this is just, as we move through the process. So this is just an estimated timeline, but some of this could be expedited as we move forward. So again, what we're looking through our timeline and through our assumptions, we can maximize between 750 to 1,000 per acre. And We'll go next slide, because I kind of talked about that in previous. But here's just showing you the return. You know, this will probably be a 20-year, possibly 30-year lease. And this kind of gives you, with the plot that we're looking at, what the solar farm would look like. But what we're currently doing with the $30,000 lease that we have, out of 20 years, we'll make over $822,000 in revenue. You know, based off of this solar farm in 20 years, we're projected to make over $9 million. So that's a lot of capital. Again, that's a low level at 450. You know, if we maximize that at higher at 1,000 per acre, making that 600,000 per year, that's what the tribe would look like in revenue per year versus 30,000 that they're receiving now, where we would get at a maximum level at 600,000. So the profitability is a lot higher, and it's maximizing the use of our land. Now, what's another unique thing I didn't mention is, let's say after 20 years, the council has another opportunity that they want to do. They will remove everything and bring the land to its natural state, because I know in previous conversations when they were looking at wind farm, that was the biggest hurdle, that, you know, we're just stuck with these giant fans. This case is a little bit different, where they will be able to remove everything and we can repurpose for whatever it may be. If we want to put buffalo, cattle, or other industries up there, they can remove everything to its natural state, and we can maximize that property for other endeavors or other priorities as council feels fit. So this is just a great kind of comparison of the revenue, what we can utilize and bring into the tribe versus what we're currently utilizing it for now. So that's what this is. Again, just kind of showing the profile risk that, you know, the tribe's not putting any risk on there. This partner's been working with us for a few years now, built that relationship where they're going to take a lot of the risk on that end. At the same time, we don't lose our sovereignty and immunity. We still own the land. It's just a simple land lease that we do like we currently do now. So it doesn't change in any aspect of that. And then, you know, we'll be able to do performance-based, provide any of those studies back to the tribe. And then again, just maximizing a plot of land that we have and taking full advantage of it. So that's the profile risk there. Next steps is just what we would like to do. Next steps is working on the land lease, working on the resolution to start the three-phase study, and start working with the utility company and the interconnection to start looking at that. So this just tells you what we would like to do moving forward, as what we will do in the upcoming weeks and upcoming months, and trying to prevent any delay and just maximizing our full capacity to making sure that we maximize our return at the nation. So that is the next steps moving forward. And I think that's one more slide. So again, this is just kind of the oversight control, you know. So the resolutions just gets us in the next step. You know, the land's still in trust. They've worked with many tribes, and the lease that they have will work with our legal representative to making sure it feels fit with us. But at the same time, you know, we'll do the proper NEPA reviews and making sure that we are applicable to all tribal and federal laws based off of that. And then just having that site control requirement allows us to start engaging with the utility companies and utilizing that process to making sure that we have a good project to present. So that's the overview of it. Sorry, Dylan, for stepping in. I know they had a hard time hearing you. But if there's technical questions, I'll pass that over here. I'll open it up if y'all have questions. But I thought this was a great way. I know we've been working with Dylan for several times. I know Vice President's been in a couple of those meetings as well with Chris. We went to Property and Utility Commission, so there's support there. We were just asking for a blessing from the council to start moving into the next phase and taking advantage of this full opportunity to start doing that three-phase study to come back to the nation and utilize what we have in the Chilocco land and making sure that we get full return on a plot of land with minimal impact to our capacity.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Kimball.
Thank you. So, Brian, thank you. So in a nutshell, we're just not going to lease it for cattle. We're going to lease it to Dylan and his team to develop a solar farm. Is that right? And we're just leasing the land, and it's just going to be an increase in our revenue stream from that lease.
So correct. So what we do currently is we lease the land to a gentleman for cattle and hay.
Correct.
It would be similar to that aspect. So what we would do is just same lease, same structure, nothing outside of that scope changes. It's just now that we are having oversight of that and maximizing that. So it's just a simple land lease where they're going to oversee it, they're going to manage it, and then we'll profit off of the land lease like we similarly do now with what we're doing with the cattle. So it'd be the same.
And the liability of all of this is, I mean, we're insured, we insure that land, right? So does that change anything as far as our liability goes? As far as the equipment that's down and employees walking around and falling, or, you know what I'm saying? I just want to know that we're going to be protected somehow, and our indemnity is protected.
So Dylan, that would be a question on your end. I believe through them, their company, since they're managing it, the insurance will fall on their end. Similar to kind of the projects like we're doing with like the behavioral health, for example, liabilities is on the owner.
The BIA, right, leasing land, and so we don't have a liability
Correct.
there.
So it would fall on the people leasing the land versus the nation. So we would be protected.
Thank you.
I would think also, just to add to that, that if we didn't have the coverage, that could be a requirement added within the lease agreement.
Right.
Councilwoman Butler.
Thank you. And I do want to say that that land lease was on the high end, because it never used to be like that. That whenever they were in negotiations for that land lease, it just kind of got up there. It used to be like, what, $3,000 to $5,000 at minimum, at most. So that's awesome that they're, that it happened like that. But I have a question about the Utility Commission. So since this is our land, we own this, and it's up there in Chilocco, are we still able to tax for utility? I know I've asked this question, and is that something that the commission is actually looking into? Are you guys doing research on that to bring additional revenues into the tribe as a commission?
Yes, so we are actually going to I'm trying to think what it's called. It's a tribal consortium, energy consortium meeting, and I've been on a couple Zoom meetings with them. They actually have a set of regulations, ordinances pertaining to energy. So, with what we have currently, we'd be able to pull what they have and pull it into ours. And that's one of the questions I'm going to ask for them. Also, they have stuff in there for right-of-way and environmental stuff. So the consortium that we're fixing to be members of, we're going to glean a lot of information from them. But yeah, definitely. I mean, that is something that we need to pull into the Pawnee Nation to have that access. And we've had discussion about the broadband, aspect of that too. So yeah, that's definitely in the wheelhouse to get done.
Which is a little bit exciting, but a little bit scary too in the same aspect, because they're going to grow. The Utility Commission's going to grow to where they're probably going to need staff. You know what I mean? Because that's what they're set up. You guys' ordinance is set up for a full-fledged staff, just like the Gaming Commission and the Tarot Commission. The Utility Commission has been so inactive over the years, and it's exciting to see, but just let the council know, hey, we're going to have to start looking at that they're going to need additional funding and stuff that, to help them bring that stuff in.
Yeah,
So.
we just had that conversation it was Monday, talking about that, that moving into this phase, we're going to have to grow at some point to have the staff, to have its own department or something. I mean, because again, everything we're trying to do, we're having growing pains everywhere, right? I mean, it's just one of those things that we have to work through as we move forward.
Any other questions? Yes, Treasurer Chapman.
How long is the lease? 30 years? Or how long?
With this one, what we're proposing right now is, well, that's still up for negotiation, but a minimum 20, and then, you know, it could be up to 30.
For the most part, just FYI, so again, I just wanted to, if you have any questions, I am here. That's 20 to 30 years, and again, I'm not sure why everything is so muffled. I apologize. I'm on my phone and my computer, but yeah, sorry. Any questions you have, I should be able to run through.
Okay, thank you. I guess my question is that is a large piece of land up there, and I do know that we have our cattle operation that is really growing, and that they are looking for land too, and then we want buffalo. Also, have we already looked into?
We are, well, I think that it's logistically probably not real possible because it's so far away from us.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's just way too far. We're looking to procure land. Actually, the Waters property is going to be coming available here from here to the Y. That acreage is coming soon, and that team is trying to find funding now to buy something for the cattle that we have here by the tracks on the reserve.
And the piggyback off of Council Kimball is, yeah, I did reach to Jimmy because that was one of the questions I had, and it's just not economically feasible to move cattle, even when they have a hard time. You know, I know they bring hay down from with the person that's renting it now, and it's still an arm and a leg of doing that because they can't even go through the city of Ponca. They got to go all the way around, which costs them more money for transferring hay and stuff like that. So they're not looking at that slot for that purposes. So when I proposed this, Jimmy thought this would be a great asset for the nation because it just wouldn't be feasible for the cattle.
And there's still a possibility, too, to utilize both instances for this, too. So it could be feasible to use it for what we're doing now and do what we're trying to do. So there's still that possibility.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Yes, Vice President Canuho.
Yes, thank you, Brian, for that presentation, and also to Dylan as well. One of the questions I had with this as well, so it looks like it's going to be over about a 3-year span of time for them to do their environmental reviews and everything else of that nature. So during that time, between now and 2026, you know, I noticed that the lease is going to be up here at the end of the month. So in that meantime, are we still looking at doing a lease up through 2026, or is once we say, hey, we're good with this, is it no longer being able to be leased? It's under that.
I'm glad you asked that question because I asked Dylan the same thing because I talked to Jimmy about the same thing. So what we'll do is Jimmy will still move forward with what relationship he has with who he's utilizing that plot for. We have a termination clause as we move forward with the study that we do here, and as we determine that this is something feasible, which he's already talked to the person that's leasing the land now, back to all the work that's been happening in the previous years. He's aware of this possibility coming down the pipeline. So he will just continue moving that relationship if he's still interested in leasing the land. And as we move closer to construction and things like that, we would just, you know, give him adequate time to make the necessary moves to exit, and then, you know, we would continue on. So, yeah, we would just, Jimmy would continue moving forward with the endeavors that he has now, and then as we move closer for construction, there'll be adequate time for both parties to do what's necessary of leaving and moving in. So I don't project any lost revenue on that end because he would just still, you know, renew that lease, and he would just be informed of what's coming on.
Once construction starts, what is the projected time frame for them to complete and begin to start seeing revenue from what they're doing? Because I would assume once they start construction to the time whenever they're, you know, complete and actually generating revenue, we're not getting anything out of the lease at that point, or are we?
I mean, that's still up in negotiation and lease agreement once we move closer to that. I could get with Dylan on that, but that would be, you know, the art of negotiation as we move forward. I know he's done several projects in tribes where, you know, they will have some return while they're doing construction, but I could get a more defined answer of how that looks. But, you know, that's what we're wanting to do now is go ahead and start working with the resolution and start working with the lease agreement, and we can, you know, present that and then, you know, allow everybody to have, you know, solidified information that makes sure that, you know, we're not losing a lot of revenue during the construction phases.
Okay. And then I'm just thinking along the lines of like the broadband, for example, we're contracting with a group who does ISP. They know what they're doing and everything else. And maybe on down the road, we would like to take more ownership of that. So looking at this option here, if we tie ourselves into a 20-year lease, is there any option, say in the 10-year mark, that, you know, we would look at purchasing the assets and taking that on ourselves? Because the way I look at it is, I mean, the lease itself would be good revenue to the tribe, but the money is whenever you're actually selling the energy to these companies is where the real revenue is. I mean, it's just with anything else, and that's just business in itself. So that would be my question too on that.
So we'll have mechanisms in that involved. You know, one of the biggest things that we see is, you know, we don't have anyone that's up there. You know, that's the biggest issue with Jimmy, with the cattle and stuff like that. We don't have people up there. So in these type of things, cattle, you know, you got to send someone up there every 2 to 3 days. You know, here, you know, with the solar, someone's going to be there every single day. So you're talking about, you know, a lot of resources burned just sending folks over there. So what we're looking at doing is having that as an option if we're at that capacity. One of the things we're wanting to do is kind of piggyback off the REAP and look at that workforce development. Yep. I know I've talked to Dylan and Chris on that as well, as while we're doing the construction, while we're piggybacking off the REAP and looking at that solar installation and things like that, we can develop that workforce, develop that capacity. So, you know, as we look down the road, and if that's something that's a priority of leadership at that time, yes, we can be ultimate owners. They've done that with other tribes. That's been ownerships, you know, working with the Utility Commission, having them a viable role of that ownership and then allowing them to do that. So this is just right now, just with the capacity that we have, we just know it's not feasible because we're just not there. But we'll put that in there as we grow and this grows. Yes, that could be something where we have ultimate ownership, or, you know, we can look at extending the lease even longer and just, you know, capitalize on the return if we're just not there yet. So yeah, we'll work on that and develop that as an option too. We're also looking at other things. I know you talked about carbon collection. You know, we'll have utilized land up there to start looking at those avenues. We're looking at other options to maximize other properties for other options as well, to kind of have like this hybrid system, if it's integrated agriculture around the solars or cattle or whatever it may be. So we're developing some plans on top of that as well. But just looking at where we are right now and capitalize to something as simple as a land lease and maximizing a return to the nation where we can turn that money into something else, investing in it more, maybe build, you know, a facility up there to house folks up there to operate it more on a permanent time, we can do that. So I'm just looking at it as right now, just capitalize on this and see the return where we can invest those extra dollars and seeing how it grows from there. So we are exploring that. So that's just kind of the conversations we've had in the past in a nutshell, that yes, there is opportunities like the broadband, like the behavioral health. If the nation wants to have that primarily ownership, it could be doable.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking too, is just kind of my vision in a way is to move us more in the technological aspect in the sphere. And a lot of that's to develop job training, to develop that within our own tribal citizens, but also to those in the community in the surrounding areas, so that we have that capacity to be able to do that. So we train people who can install, we can train people who are maintenance workers, we can train people who understand the interconnection capabilities with Southwest Power Pool and those other things like that. And even still also having an understanding in the business side of it to be able to run these facilities like that in a good way. And so those are kind of my thoughts with that. I was thinking too, yeah, with REP is the training that's there, being able to incorporate that somehow in that. Last question would be is we just had Amy here and she was talking about the land use and everything else, is that thinking about Chilocco is, if this is something that we start going down that road and everything else, I mean, I know nothing's set in stone right now, but were there other possibilities to use that land? I know we're currently using it for cattle grazing and hay and things like that. We're looking at solar now, but I just want to make sure we're not, locking ourselves into something and then something else comes along that could have been a better opportunity that we didn't even think about exploring, that comes up later on. Because I look at the numbers and they're great and everything else, but sometimes you got to also have to be cautious. Sometimes you hear that old adage, if it sounds too good to be true, sometimes it might be. And you see these numbers right now versus what we could possibly get. There might be things down the road that might be better. I don't know. But I know for this company here, I mean, there might be incentives with the new act that was passed from the Biden administration that they're taking advantage of that maybe we didn't even look at or consider that possibly Pawnee Nation could do as well. But we just don't have that resource right now. But I think right now, just in the starting phases of this, it's good just to kind of explore and think about that. But those are kind of my initial thoughts thinking about this moving forward.
Well, at the same time, we have, 200 plus acres, as we're looking at growing at the same time. This is just an opportunity as we get closer and closer of, the limited ARPA funds that we have. We want to take advantage of additional revenue coming in with all our other investments that we have. So this is just a perfect opportunity to look at that, to, utilize, okay, what are we utilizing it for now versus, what opportunities we could take advantage of. Again, we still have several hundred acres up there to explore. And then, as we move forward, this could be another opportunity of that ownership of another revenue source, or if priorities do change, we have that flexibility to, move it to its natural state. And if we want to put an Amazon warehouse up there, hey, we could do that too. But this is just taking advantage of the interconnection opportunities and not putting ourselves to where competitors can jump in and then we lose our spot. But at the same time, develop workforce, develop people in our community, and provide adequate jobs they have access points to. And then as we grow and we start looking at other opportunities 5, 10, 20 years down the road, we still have a soluble plot of land that we can utilize. One of the things that, Council Kimball talked about with land coming up, this could be another source of funding that we can look at diversifying and buying more property. With the revenue coming in, you have set asides, you can buy more property, you can diverse, more locally, where you're not worrying about the transportation burden that we face on many different occasions for other different purposes, of its healthcare, education, and so forth, of a plot that's 2.5 hours away. So that's just some things also to consider as well as we move forward. But this is just a great opportunity that we wanted just to start looking at the study, start doing the phasing, and that gives us the capability to do our due diligence and come back to council and saying, hey, you're getting 34,000 now, and this is something that shows a lot of promise and many different spectrums. And that's just what we would like to start exploring now and taking advantage of it. And then
Thank you, Brian, for your presentation. Chris, did you have something you wanted to add? Or?
Yeah, I'll just add a quick comment with Vice President Eckhoff, Vice President Canujo. Sorry, I apologize. Right, I know it. No, The educational part. So Pawnee Nation College, again, we've talked about everything that they're doing with GIS and everything, but they're also doing solar stuff, working with Nebraska Indian College. So this could also be a component in there. Be it, it's a little distance away, but, that could be a field trip type thing to see how the process and all that works. And again, with additional acres we have up there, who's not to say that we don't develop, a factory building batteries, building the panels. I mean, there's, I think, opportunities upon opportunities to explore as well.
Yeah, and I know with the rep, there's 10 spots to be able to do the training. That they're going to come down here and do the training down here, so at least 10 of our students will be able to do that. One company that you actually got to go with the executive director was Canoe, and they have a place in Oklahoma City, one in Pryor. Places like that would be great to look at doing, as well as developing those relationships that maybe someday down the road, hey, let's build a facility here that builds the batteries, that builds these other things like that. And that's just more revenue to our tribe, but also creates more jobs for our citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think, going back to past history, with the Pawnee Nation, we've had opportunities to grow and expand, to do better. This is another one of those opportunities. Do we take it, or do we let it pass? So so we have a draft resolution. We have a draft land lease, to provide to you all and to the AG to review. This could be, a game changer, to reinvest these dollars into, additional land, additional services, back to the tribe. So that's all I have to say.
Councilwoman Butler.
I just wanted to make a comment because, we're always looking for scholarship funding for our tribal members, and maybe this is an opportunity. It's a long lease. Maybe that's an opportunity for the company that they could provide maybe one scholarship for a tribal member who wants to go into that field and pay for, help them to go for the schooling, whatever they're doing over here at the Pawnee Nation College, or if they're going somewhere else as a tribal member for the same study. Just throwing a little plug out, throwing out scholarship stuff.
Yeah, we can, work on that as well. I think that's not a bad thing to explore either, because I know workforce development is one of the probably categories that we're looking at, and I think that's valuable, and that's just, again, another tenfold of reinvesting and showing something that, one thing led to another and it's helped. So I know you're pro scholarship, and I'll make sure I mention that and throw that in there, but yeah.
Okay, so what we're looking for tonight, I guess, is whether or not to give the green light to them to move forward on drafting the lease and working with the AG on the resolution, or do we want to, I don't know if we need any additional information. I didn't hear any other questions or concerns. Well, that's what I mean. They're just wanting to know whether or not to proceed or not. Or what do we want to do?
So is it a vote, or is it just?
It was just,
It was a discussion for tonight.
I asked for discussion because we're not formally presenting anything. I think we'll do that with the lease and the resolution. And as we do our initial three-phase feasibility study, we'll finally lock everything in moving forward. This was just, we wanted to have a discussion. If you feel, like, hey, this looks like a great opportunity, we want to know more, we'll go back, and work on that, and then formally present all the documents and everything, and have a vote there and approval there. We just wanted to just have this discussion saying, hey, yes, this looks great. We want to know a little bit more and move forward.
Okay, follow-up question to that. Feasibility study, who's going to conduct that, and has that already been identified, the funding for that? Or?
That's Dylan's team and everybody. So they've done this with several tribes. So that's what they'll do. That's why it's not going to be any, out-of-pocket expenses to the nation. They're putting at risk. They're really good experts that do this in and out. And if we want, the slides that they've done with other tribes, show that. So yes, that would be them, and they would take that responsibility, no burden to us. And we'll come back with all those studies and all that, information, and then we'll go through the formal process of moving closer and closer if it's feasible for construction.
Right. Okay, well, thank you for the presentation tonight.
All right, thank you.
And thank you, Dylan, for attending and hanging in there with us. Next item we have is item number 5, approval of resolution 2342, FNBT Reconnect 3 account.
I'll be presenting on this. Council, I sent an email earlier this afternoon. I don't know if you had a chance to read it or not. If not, that's fine. What this resolution is our Reconnect 3 project is getting close to releasing funds. And so because of that, one of the requirements that USDA is asking us is that we set up a bank account for the funds for this project. And so you'll notice in the resolution here, we have the project name, which is RUS Project OK 1716 A61, Pawnee Nation Reconnect Round 3 funds. And then we want to set up an account, Sovereign Bank, formerly known as First National Bank. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they changed their name.
Oh, yeah.
I know, I saw that, I was like, huh, okay. Hey, it caught me off guard. I know, right?
We made the changes.
Okay, all right. And so we're looking at setting up an account with Sovereign Bank. And so as I was mentioning to you all in the email and in the resolution that was sent out this afternoon, it was formerly First National Bank and Trust. This bank here is a Native American owned bank through the Potawatomis, and as I was discussing this with Laura May, she wanted to also ensure that we are covered under the FDIC insurance, and so it was good for us to look at a separate bank where we do not have assets currently placed, and so she gave me a list of different banks that were Native American owned, and so we looked at this one here, and so that's the one that we want to move forward with. And so this resolution is just really just to give us the go-ahead to set this account up. I'm available to answer any questions from any of our council members at this time.
I don't have any questions, but I'll make the motion to approve this resolution.
Okay, we have a motion to approve resolution 2342. Seconded by Councilwoman
Kimball.
Kimball. And just to make note of the change of the resolution title, 2342 should be Sovereign Bank Reconnect 3 account. If no further discussion, we'll call for the vote.
Jordan Canuho,
Yes.
George Gardner, yes. Carol Chapman,
Yes.
Cynthia Butler,
Yes.
Donna Hare,
Uh-huh.
Gene Evans,
Yes.
Sammy Kimball.
Yes.
Okay, at this time, we're moving on to item 10, open forum. Do you have any speakers for open forum?
I want to go last. Okay. Who's going first?
Hold on. Good evening, council.
Good evening.
I was tuned in earlier and I heard some discussion about the quarterly reports. And so I just wanted to come and formally apologize to the council for the late Gaming Commission report. There were some numbers I was waiting on that got to you a little bit late, but I'm apologizing for that because I heard some discussion about it. So that's all I had for open forum.
Thank you, Arthur, for coming and
President
sending your
Nuttall.
apology. Yes, Councilwoman.
I just wanted to give some accolades over here to you. Arthur, you've put Pawnee on the map with your Lone Teepee Productions He has been all over Indian country all summer long and putting a name for the Pawnees. Thank you very much. Congratulations on your business.
Thank you.
Seems it's jumping.
Thank you, Arthur. Anyone else for open forum? Good evening.
Hello, everybody. Good grief. Okay, I'm here, and my first question is, what is the update on the request that the travelers made for help with the beef for the Grandparents' Day dance?
Do we have an update on that, George?
I don't have an update, other than I did request 75 pounds from,
I can't hear you, George.
I requested 75 pounds of beef from the ag department, but we haven't gotten a response yet.
You still haven't got a response? Who is it? Who makes the decision?
Made the request through Jimmy Justice.
Is
Jimmy?
is that our only choice?
As far as I know, yes.
Well, when can we expect an answer?
I'll check back tomorrow and I'll call you.
You have my number?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. The gift bag request. I understand that there is a tribal program that has extra bags of cleaning supplies. And my request is, please do not give these special guests a bag of cleaning supplies. If there are extra, why not give them to everybody else? Please, no bag of cleaning supplies for these extra special guests. And I heard from one full-blood tribal member, very special request that I not invade her privacy and release her name. I said, okay, that's fine. So there will not be 70 at the dance. I predict there will be maybe 40, at the most 50. But anyway, we are going to invite 3 or 4 vendors to set up that day with their merchandise. Tax Commission will be one of them. And I just want to tell you, if you want to buy anything from the Tax Commission, please bring cash or checks, because something about the square doesn't work, so not taking credit cards. Let's see. What's the update on the Pawnee being excluded from the article about the town of Pawnee?
I did talk with our outgoing director. We're going through employee change at the chamber. We're actually doing interviews next Monday. Our director got a new job. So I did talk to her about that, and she's going to get me some more information on that, but she wants to be able to do that at the same time when we hire this new employee. So that's going to happen next week. But yes, they do know that we are asking questions about some of the tourism things and stuff, and they think it's a great idea that we include the Pawnee Nation in it. So I'm working on that.
Okay. Let's see. Surely I got something else to complain about. No, I don't. I have a compliment. I called over to the tribal office one day last week. Thought I had the wrong number. The woman who answered had a strong, confident business voice. It was Bonnie Hawkins. I said, Bonnie, you sound so great. And she did. Anyway, think you ought to hire. Answer the phone. And anybody have any questions for me?
Yes, Councilwoman Butler.
I still have my tickets from selling the raffle.
Oh, yes. We're going to
She
draw
does not
Friday.
have
Well, I don't have them. George has them.
She gave them to me to
But
give you.
when are you going to do that? Because I sold all my tickets.
Yay. Misty, will you be available Friday afternoon about 4?
I should be, yeah.
Okay.
We have negotiations that day, but I'll be available.
Okay. Oh,
If you'll come by the office, I'll get that to you
Okay.
tomorrow.
Where is it? I've heard from several of the full bloods, and one lady, I can't find my note. But anyway, one of the special features at the Grandparents' Day dance is we want to give everybody 1 minute, and we're going to time you. We want you to get up and tell us who your grandparents were. All we want is their name. Don't care if they were a chief or a princess or straight dancer, fancy dancer, just their name. And we're giving everybody 1 minute. And a couple of the young women that I spoke to today requested that part be filmed. And I said, well, okay, I could ask Geneva if she would like to film it. Yes. Yes, you can? Okay, I'll call and tell her. Okay, and let's see. Well, that's all my complaints. All my compliments. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Ann. And thank you for those who provided updates to her. As you can see, those little updates go a long way with her, so. All right, anything else that we have for open forum? Council? Any guests? If not, we'll move on to setting the next meeting date. Looks like it'll be September 5th at 5 p.m. Does anybody have any conflicts with that? Yes, Donna. Councilwoman Hare.
Yes, so I start teaching next week, and I teach Tuesday, Thursdays, and I get my my last class gets out at 5:15, but I don't want to put the council behind because I know staff needs to wait, so I would just, on the days that I have class, I would request that I could be late. I mean, come to the meeting a little bit late. It'll be about 30 minutes. Oh, and I don't think I have to work Thursday nights all the time anymore. I think it's just going to be into the late afternoon.
So do we want to move our meetings from Tuesdays to Thursdays, or do you want to keep it the same, or what's the wishes? Okay. We'll just keep it the same, and then, remember to consider that when we're taking attendance. I'm sorry, what? Well, we entertained that this evening, so does everybody want to move it to 5:30, and she wouldn't, miss most of the meeting, so. Okay, 5:30 p.m., September the 5th. And if nothing further, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Got a motion by Vice President. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilwoman Butler. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
And we are adjourned at 8:12 p.m.
Right.
All right. All right, thank you for attending.